Good evening and welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, bringing you information about your library and your community. This evening my guest is Roberta Koscielski, and we're going to talk about the Biography Nonfiction Book Club and their choices for 2013. Hi Roberta.
Hi Tricia.
Thanks for coming again. But you do so many different things, but I think the book club is probably one of your fun things you do, if I'm not mistaken. Get back to actually being a reader and a librarian. And I thought this would be a good time to talk about the year you have coming up, because we hope people come to the book club, but these are great books that a group of people have thought worthy of reading. And so it's great because even if you don't come to the book club, this is kind of a great preview of some wonderful biography and nonfiction books to read. But let's talk a little bit about your club. It's one of our newer clubs. When and how did this club begin?
Well, I checked. I kind of knew our circumstances of how this started, but I went back to the archives last night, and found we started in early 2009 in the planning.
Okay.
It was actually kind of an offshoot of Peoria Reads.
Yes.
During Peoria Reads 2009, we did the book The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. And Carol May, who is retired instructor and department chair of ICC, participated in Peoria Reads, showed films and led discussions about the Maltese Falcon film. And she leads book clubs, and she wanted to know if the library had a biography and or nonfiction book club. And if so, could one be organized? And I said, of course we can do that. Yeah. Being not a nonfiction or biography reader at all, I said, of course we can do this. And so she and I became the co-coordinators of this club. We worked all summer, put out surveys at ICC at the library to just gauge interest. And then in fall of 2009, we had our first meeting, and shortly afterwards selected our books for 2010, since our public relations coordinator, Tricia Noack, wants to have a year of books at a time for ease of publicity. And so we can get the word out to people ahead of time, so because some of these books can be quite long and quite intense. So a person may very well take more than one book to read one if they like. So this way people know ahead of time what we're going to read.
Well, and it's nice too to be able to see the whole list if you're going to buy them. People can give them to you for gifts, or if you know when you have time to read, you can have the book ready to go and not be searching around for it or having to go to the library. But yeah, it's some of them are longer, and a lot of them have long titles, which is kind of a joke in the publicity department about your titles are too long. But
most nonfiction books have subtitles, and with these subtitles are someone at the library mentioned that you don't have to read the book. You can just read the title and the subtitle, and you've got most of it taken care of.
What's going on? So anyway, who are the members? Who is it that wants to come and read and discuss these books?
This particular club, I'm probably one of the younger members. Club members range in age from 50s through 80s. Many of them are retired. Retired instructors, retired from the Ag Lab, retired professionals, and many of them have been with us since 2009 when the club started, and they were interested in it, and some have joined along the way. Okay.
Do you accept new members? If somebody's watching this and they think this sounds like something they'd like to do, can they come?
Definitely, and we're very fortunate that because of your work, the Journal Star publishes the Peoria Public Library book clubs and area library book clubs in their Sunday newspaper. And so we have had people come in. We meet on the third Sunday of each month, and we've had people come in on a Sunday. They're new faces, and we ask them, introduce yourself and tell us how you happened to come today. And they saw it in the paper that morning, and it might have been a book they'd read before, or they were just interested in the subject.
Yeah, and you don't have to have finished the book to come to the book discussion.
We don't.
A lot of times you can, a lot of times you can enjoy it more, the book more, even if you hear something about it and then go off and finish reading it. So that people should not be afraid of that. You can come anyway.
Because many of our books are long, and our book club members, most of them, I would say, are involved in at least one other book club. And so they're reading all the time, and they might not finish the current book. But we know the facilitator has, and most of the members have read it, and so it doesn't matter. Some people then decide, I'm not going to finish this at the end of the book club, or some say, oh, I really want to go home and finish this myself.
Yeah. Okay, well, where do you meet?
I mentioned we meet on the third Sunday of each month at the North Branch of Peoria Public Library, which is the branch on West Grand Parkway off Allen Road. And in one of the meeting rooms there from 3 o'clock till 4:30.
Okay, that's
Sunday afternoon.
Good. Get home in time for dinner.
Definitely. The branch closes at 5, so, we want to try to be out as soon after 4:30 as possible, but
so
sometimes the discussion lingers.
Okay. So who's selecting these books? How are the decisions made on what to read?
All year long, some of the people who come to the club might say, well, this is another good book I read, and I'll take notes along the way, keep track of those. Each year we've selected and voted a little differently. We select and vote in October of each year, so we just did it for 2013. And around September, I asked for the members to please submit suggestions. This year, each member could submit up to 5 suggestions. And being a member is just really being on my book club mailing list. You don't have to come to any number of meetings or anything. So
there's no initiation rituals.
Well, I won't say if there is.
You won't say?
No.
Okay. No, there's not.
No, we just people select up to 5, suggest up to 5, and then I'll make a master list for that October meeting. And then one year we tried bullet voting last year. This year we just then had each person select 5 titles. They couldn't do bullets. They had to select up to 5 titles then at the meeting. And tallied them up, and the top 12 vote getters are the 12 for the year. And then in terms of a discussion leader, it's typically the person who suggests the book also becomes the leader, because theoretically they've read the book to be able to suggest it, although sometimes one person will suggest 5 books and maybe 3 of that person's books have been selected. And so if they want, they can ask if someone else would like to lead one of these.
So it's kind of shared within the group, and it's not all falling on one person.
Others can have a chance as well to lead.
Okay, well now I want to go on and talk about these books, because you've got information for us on all of them. And I'm going to call up our first one, which is one I'm kind of interested in reading. It's Mormon Country by Wallace Stegner. And so what can you tell us about this one?
Wallace Stegner is maybe more well known for fiction. But this is, of course, nonfiction, and it's about the Mormons who they were not welcome to settle in Illinois and Missouri, and so they migrated west, and of course settled in the American West. And I think this book was selected because of our presidential candidate, and so people in the club just wanted to learn more about Mormons. And there's usually our book club is pretty tame, just the facts. We have a vibrant discussion, even if the discussion leader can't make it. If I or someone else gets them started with just a few questions, that group can discuss for an hour and a half, no problem. But this time we're going to have a special bonus. If you come an hour early, I think it's an hour and a half, it'll be out in publicity, before our meeting, we're going to show a documentary on the author, Wallace Stegner, so people can have a little more background on him ahead of time.
Okay.
So this will give people a good background on who the Mormons are and how they came to be, where they settled.
Well, it's an interesting topic for people who live in Illinois. If they go back and read about the Mormon Wars in Illinois and in the 1840s, and of course we're not that far from Nauvoo, and go and see a lot of interesting historic sites. Okay, so on to February. We've got David McCullough and The Greater Journey, Americans in Paris, which is probably about as far away as you can get from the Mormons.
Yeah, and this might be a book that other people have, David McCullough is a very popular author, and other book clubs have probably done this book, so there may be people who have already discussed it or at least read it somewhere else along the way. This covers the years between 1830 and 1900, when many famous Americans moved to Paris and settled there for a while, like Mark Twain, Oliver Wendell Holmes, Samuel Morse, and Harriet Beecher Stowe, writers, artists who then stayed in Paris, and it's information about how Paris and living there influenced their life and work, and you know, and writing, medicine, science, and so on. So it's one of our maybe more readable, popular titles that people would be interested in.
Okay, well, moving on to March, you've got Robert O'Connell with Ghost of Cana. Is that how you say that?
I believe so.
Hannibal and the Darkest Hour of the Roman Republic.
Gives you a clue.
Which, of course, is a completely, yeah, we know what this one's about, which is, you know, completely miles and, you know, generations away from Paris. So.
And I'm going to tell you that one of the unique things about our club is that there's almost an equal number of men and women. You know, you go to a lot of book clubs, and
it's all women.
all the female faces discussing fiction.
Yeah.
But here, just like in the science fiction book club that's run by Wanda at the library, there's almost equal numbers of men and women, which gives you a richer conversation and different perspectives. But if you have men in a biography and nonfiction book club, you're going to have war books, it seems, on the agenda. So this is the first of the war books for 2013, about Hannibal's invasion and ravaging of Italy during the Second Punic War. That was between 219 and 201 BC. So this may be, you know, a more difficult book. But you know, the books are challenging, and you know, the discussions are rich because we have people, the discussion leaders usually do even more research. I mean, it's not necessary, but you know, sometimes they email the author and ask a couple of questions, and then the author writes back, and we hear what the author had to say. A few times we've even had a Skype with the author.
Oh, nice.
You know, or a visit in one case of a local author.
That's one thing with being in a book club. You get some benefits like that you may not get just reading a book on your own. And just to, you know, have other people's thoughts and people explain things with a book like this is really beneficial.
Well, my experience is, you know, when we formed the club and at our first meeting, I remember saying that I read 90+% fiction.
Yeah.
And so, you know, many of these subjects are new to me, past, you know, what I learned in school or what I catch in the newspaper. So, and the discussion is just as enlightening as the book is.
Oh, good. So, okay.
April.
Yeah, April. You have Catherine the Great, Portrait of a Woman by Robert Massey.
Okay. 3 war books this year, 3 biographies of women this year.
Right.
And this is the first one, Catherine the Great, who was the Empress of Russia, and she was the longest ruling leader of Russia, in fact, female ruling leader of Russia. She was married to Peter III, who was assassinated, and that's when she came to take the throne.
Oh, all right.
So Robert Massey is a well-known author who's a biographer. So.
And on to another ruler for May, you've got Rawhide Down, the near assassination of Ronald Reagan by Del Quentin Wilbur.
People think about where they were when, you know, on 9/11 or when Kennedy was shot or different historic. And I always, you know, when I think about Ronald Reagan and his near assassination, you know, I remember in college working at the library there and hearing the news and when that went on in 1981. When this happened, you know, it was kind of kept covered up. No one knew how close to death he was.
Yeah.
And what a crisis it was.
That's why I don't
nation.
remember where I was, because it was like, oh, an assassination attempt, but it seemed like it wasn't that drastic or that important until much later we found out the details.
When the details and
great PR people at work.
So I think this will be very interesting.
Yeah. And in June, we've got Lisbon, War in the Shadows of the City of Light, 1939-1945, by Neil Lockery.
The second war book of 2013.
Back to Paris, too.
Yeah. We're during World War II, Lisbon, Portugal was neutral, tried to stay neutral. And so they, though, were kind of a gathering place of exiled royalty and refugees and prisoners of war, writers and artists and spies, secret agents. Everybody was there. And so it sounds like it was, it was a city of light, as they called it, in the midst of war going all around them.
Kind of like
in
Paris
Europe.
was earlier, but everybody was there. Okay. And in July, Destiny of the Republic, A Tale of Madness, Medicine, and the Murder of a President by Candace Millard.
This is a repeat author for us. Candace Millard is also the author of River of Doubt, and that was about Theodore Roosevelt.
Oh, okay.
And this year we also read, in 2012, we read the Grover Cleveland biography. And I mean, I knew pretty much zero about Grover Cleveland until I read that, and that was quite interesting. And so this was one of the books I voted for. James Garfield and his rise from poverty to presidency. He was assassinated in office at the age of 50. And so I think, like Grover Cleveland, I know very little about James Garfield, and that'll be a great learning experience.
Yeah, it's wonderful. All the things you missed in school. And then in August, we'll be reading The Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher, From Grocer's Daughter to Prime Minister by John Campbell.
Obviously, our second biography of a strong, important woman in 2013. She was the first female prime minister. She served from 1979 to 1990. And so, it'll be interesting, the interaction between her and other world leaders and comparisons with today.
Yeah.
Our discussions, we don't shy away from politics in our discussions. And we do make comparisons to then and now. So,
And then in September, you've got The Envoy, The Epic Rescue of the Last Jews of Europe in the Desperate Closing Months of World War II by Alex Kershaw.
Okay, another war book. It seems like we just finished Nazis on the Run, which was how Hitler's henchmen fled. And this is, Adolf Eichmann had sent over 500,000 Hungarians to the gas chambers at Auschwitz. And this is the story of then how Raoul Wallenberg did the last rescue of over 100,000 men, women, and children who were Jews, how he worked to save them. So we do have some running themes. We did Nazis on the Run this year, and now we've got this one actually almost a year later.
Yeah, there seems to be ongoing discussion about the Holocaust, and I think people, so much of that's taken so long for it to come out, and there's people who don't believe it happened, and people are so horrified they don't want to forget. They want us to remember how easy it is to slide into a mass murder like that. So
in our club too, having people who are who've had a lot of experience because of their age, it's interesting to learn, growing up during these times, what their parents said to them, how history was presented to them in their homes.
Yes.
And so it's very enlightening.
I've had that experience working with family history and genealogy and talking to an older relative who was a child at the time and telling her something that she insisted was not true, and I had paperwork to prove it. She did not know that her uncle was lost behind the lines in Nazi Germany as a paratrooper, and she insisted that never happened. And I said, you were 9 years old. They didn't tell you he was missing. She just was astounded. So it is interesting when you hear people who grew up during these times, what their parents told them or didn't tell them.
What the relatives would say.
Yeah. Okay. And in October, Incognito, The Secret Lives of the Brain by David Eagleman.
Yeah. I think this is going to be one that's, a more popular title. It's not war, it's not women, it's more of a science title, and I'm always glad when there's a science title that makes the cut. This goes into the way our brains work. Things like, why is it that you'll put your foot on the brake when you're driving seconds before you even realize there's danger. Somehow there's an instinct in there, or there's a conversation going on in another room, and you're not listening to it, you're reading or doing something else, watching TV, but once your name is mentioned, if your first name is mentioned, all of a sudden, you know, that triggers, you're listening.
You know what they were talking about.
Just you know, how the brain works.
Yeah. Okay, and in November, we have Eva Braun, Life with Hitler. By...
What's that? Oh, yeah, here we go.
This is two authors.
Heike Gortemacher and Damien Searle.
Yeah.
Our third woman for 2013. And of course, she was the longtime companion of Hitler. I guess they met when she was 17. They were together for 16 years. They were married for 40 hours. They, when she was 33 and he was 56, they got married. 40 hours later, and I don't know the circumstances yet because I haven't read it, and I won't until next November, they committed suicide together. And I know I read that she had swallowed a cyanide pill. So
I didn't know that. I don't remember that about them being married, so that's interesting. I might have to read this one.
Yeah, or at least the ending.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't recall how long this book is or anything, you know. Yeah. But I think this will be interesting. We've read in our club a lot about Hitler, of course, but not about the woman behind him who didn't really affect his policies or his thought, but was right there with him for 16 years of his life.
So yeah. So we don't think that Eva Braun was an influence on him and what he did. She was just there. From
the little bit I've read, you know, it sounded like she didn't influence his government. You know, he was 40 by the time they met, when she was 17. So, you know,
she probably didn't have a lot of influence. You know,
and perhaps who knows how much he influenced her.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
More so if she was a teenager when they met.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and in December, on December 8th, Siberian Odyssey, A Voyage into the Russian Soul by Frederick Kempe. Yeah, Frederick Kempe is a repeat author for us too. I believe he's a Wall Street Journal journalist. And this is the story of a 5-week Siberian Odyssey, a 5-week trip into Siberia. Oh, okay.
Meeting the people there and you know,
during time period now or earlier?
Earlier, I don't have the dates of that, but it's, you know, during the century, obviously. And just meeting the people and seeing what they think of their government. And you know, we always hear, you know, I've heard the phrase growing up, send you off to Siberia, send someone to Siberia.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested in finding out what the conditions really were and are.
What they're like and what life is like there. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that come out of Siberia. So, well, for you were going to say something?
Well, I don't know if it was about the same. This is our year. Obviously, next October we pick the next, and you know, people can jump in and out, and they do jump in and out of the club.
Just pick the books you are interested in discussing.
You know, or you know, there are people, as I mentioned, many of them are retired. And so they're gone, you know, the regulars usually email me and let me know if they're not going to be there. So we have kind of a different mix of people. We've got some who've been there since the beginning, but some jump in and out, so there's no
snowbirds
attendance.
or people who travel in the summer, whatever.
Yeah, we have one who just got back from Alaska and you know, an Alaskan trip. And so, you know, it's a good club we're starting our 4th year, so we're solid.
Going strong and looking forward to many more lively discussions.
We've got, many of our people are involved in Bradley's OLLI, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute.
Okay.
And they're really interested in continuing education and learning more. And so they're used to this discussion environment. And
they're people who are curious.
Yes.
And have a love for learning. Yeah. Well, if somebody wants more information, how do they get more information about your book club?
Just go to Peoria Public Library's website, www.peoriapubliclibrary.org. Click on, I believe it is Who We Are, and you go to book clubs. And then all of Peoria Public Library's book clubs are listed. You can click on each one, find out what they're reading and the dates and the times when they meet, or you can call me at 497-2186.
Right. And you also can pick up passages when you're in any library, and usually it's in the Journal-Star. And I think you can probably search the Journal-Star, or if you don't get the paper issue, and get it. So there's lots and lots, and you can ask at the desk at any library location, and they'll be able to tell you which book is when. But
give me a call and I'll email you.
Remind people that we're talking about the Biography Nonfiction Book Club schedule for 2013. You meet on the third Sunday of the month at Peoria Public Library North Branch at 3. And you try to wrap up by 4:30, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, Roberta. It's been
Thank
great
you.
having you. A lot of great books, and we'll get that out there so people can find them and read them.
Thank you.
We have so many things going on at Peoria Public Library. As always, we have new book clubs forming for younger people now. We have some teen and grade school book clubs, as well as there's a new book club forming for people who are in their 20-somethings but still enjoy reading the young adult literature, and so you can find out about that one. But we also, coming up, are going to have lots of wonderful events through the holidays when the kids are out of school, all kinds of story times, craft times, movies that are free, great places to burn off some of that energy when you've been reading books and sitting still too long. But we'll hope you'll come and enjoy all we have to offer at Peoria Public Library. See you next week on Information Please.